Howdy gang, Chad here, and welcome back to Firechild Video. Now look guys, I know it's been a long time since I said I was going to bring you this tutorial, and I'm barely getting around to it. I understand that. I know it's probably very frustrating for you guys, but you know, sometimes life happens. And when I say that, I mean it very literally. You see, I've become a father recently, and I'm not sure if you guys know this, but apparently having a child takes a lot of time. And that's very true. So I've had to stray away from Firechild Video and getting these things recorded simply because I have a kid now, you know, and it's very time consuming. But I know I'm not trying to make excuses, but that's the way it is. But I am trying to get back into it. I'm trying to be more regular with the content. And that's what we're here to do today. So I'm going to stop wasting so much time and get to it. So here's what we're going to do. We've got a very hot tutorial for you. As you can see on your screen, we're going to be setting some text on fire, and it's not going to be, we're not going for photorealistic fire here, because obviously we're talking about graphics, we're talking about text, we're talking about typography. And so it's going to be a stylized flame, but a cool effect nonetheless. And I'll show you how to manipulate the colors and get whatever color of crazy fire you want to get. Okay, so here we are in Blender, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start by just getting rid of that default cube, getting rid of that lamp, and let's hit, actually, let me go over here, turn on our screencast keys, and we'll hit Shift A, text, and go to top view. We're pressing 7 on the number pad, and let's just center this up a little bit. And we can type out our text. Now for this tutorial, you can type out whatever you want, but for this tutorial, I'm just going to take a single letter, and I'm going to take the letter S, because this tutorial is brought to you by the letter S. That's a stupid joke. I'm using S because it's got some cool curve in it, and it'll add to it's one of the more impressive letters for this simulation. So let's go ahead and give it some depth by going to our font menu here. And under geometry, you'll see a modification for extrude. So we'll just extrude that out. You know, you can go as crazy as you want, but I'm going to kind of keep it nice like that. And then what we can do is put it in front view by hitting RX90, enter. And that'll rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. So now we're looking at it from the front view, where we can go ahead and position our camera, which is way over here right now. But if we hit Control-Alt numpad 0, it'll snap the camera to our view. So if we go to 1 and just kind of position our world camera, as it were, Control-Alt numpad 0, and there we go. And I'll select the camera, and I'm just going to move it around a little bit. Bring it. Fire's more impressive when you look at it from below. So rotate on the x-axis, and we'll look up at it some. And that's cool. That'll give us a cool effect. So there we go. Shift Z, you'll see we've just got our text. Okay, so let's start. Let's set up our physics by, we have to give it a domain. So let's Shift A, mesh, cube. Now this is kind of basic fire creation stuff. You create a flow object, and then you create a domain. So right now I'm just setting up my domain. We don't need it to be very wide because the fire is just going to go up anyway. And we don't need it very wide either, so we'll scale it. Oops. Oh, bumped the microphone. Sorry about that. Scale it on the X. Sorry. And there we go. So now it's all set up. We can go to our physics tab here. Let's make a little space. And we can turn on smoke for the domain and smoke for the letter, which, yes, it's not working. You're not getting your smoke options here, and that's because this is still a text object. And what we need it to be is we need it to be a mesh object. And that we can fix. Let me just hide the domain for a second. And we can fix that real easily by selecting our text with right click and then pressing Alt-C. And that brings up this little pop-up menu, which will allow us to convert to a curve or convert to a mesh. And what we want to do is we want to convert it to a mesh. So go ahead and click that one. And then if we tab to go into edit mode, you'll see our geometry is a nightmare. So let's clean that up just a little bit, just to keep things nice and clean. We'll hit A to select everything. Then hit your space bar, brings up your search, and type in limited limited dissolve, which is right here. And what this will do is it's using n-gons, and it'll help simplify the geometry and get rid of some extra vertices and kind of just make this conversion look a little nicer. We'll see what I mean. So now we've got one big n-gon for the S for the face, and it cleaned everything up pretty nicely. You can adjust the max angle here to change how it does its thing, but that's pretty good. So we'll just keep it there. Tab back into object mode. And as you can see, now that we're a mesh object, we've got our physics, and we can apply smoke. And let me just Alt H, brings back the hidden domain cube. And for the cube, we want to set it as our domain. So under smoke, domain. And then for the letter, we want it to be our flow. And let's go ahead down here, and what we can do is set up, we don't need a full 250 frames for this. Set it for what you need for your project, but for this demo, I'm just going to set it to about 100 frames. So if we hit Alt A, you can see we've got some, well, what may pass for smoke, some black, nasty smoke. But if we render Shift Z, we've got nothing. It shows absolutely nothing. And that's because we haven't set up any materials yet. So escape gets us out of that. And let's go ahead and pull it out a little bit. And let's go ahead and set up some of our settings for our smoke. So let's start with the domain. Or actually, let's start with the flow object. And what we've got here is you've got your flow source, which is our mesh, is good. But what we want to do is we want this fire to just be licking off the surface. We want it very close to the surface of our letter. So what we can do is under smoke, we can go to surface and bump this way, 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 way down. Something like 0.65 I found works pretty good. And now if we bring this back to the beginning and hit Alt A, it's kind of hard to tell because we haven't set other settings up yet, but the smoke is actually real close to the letter now, which is closer to what we want. So really that's all we need to do with the flow object. So we can go into the domain by right clicking, and here's where we're going to do most of our work, which isn't a whole lot. First things first, we need a much more resolution. So 32 times 3. And you can go as high as you want on this, but just remember, the higher you go on that, the longer your computing time and the longer it's going to take to render this thing. So 96 is good for me for right now. Let's turn on adaptive domain. That'll make the simulation a lot faster. And turn on smoke high resolution. It says we want ourselves to have some high res flames coming off there. So that looking good. For high resolution, I've noticed we can kick up the divisions. Don't go too high and too crazy with that because it's been known to crash Blender. And I've noticed that I really don't know how it works. If anybody can explain the noise method to me. I'm not sure why, but I've found that FFT... Remember I was talking about my son? You can hear him in the background. Mommy's trying to rock him to sleep. So... He's a little bit like Daddy. He's kind of a night owl. Doesn't want to sleep. Anyway, if someone explained the difference of these two noise methods, I'd love to hear about it. But I've found that for stylized fire, the way we're doing, FFT seems to produce a better result than Wavelet does. I don't know why, so I can't explain that to you. I'm sure someone out there can explain it. So that is all set up. Next, what we need to do is we need to set it up. In fact, let me go ahead and save the project. And we'll call this fire toot. Okay. And what I'm going to go is go ahead and bake the dynamics to 100 frames just so we can see it in real time. We'll wait for this to process a little bit. Okay, so it didn't quite finish. As you can see in this progress bar down here at the bottom of the screen, I stopped it about, 45%, 44% because I didn't feel like waiting that long because we just need to show you this. Now you see we have some much better smoke coming on. Let me just escape because it's trying to do the whole thing. We've got some much better smoke going on. It's higher resolution. It looks better. But the problem we have now is we want our fire, because right now it's simulating smoke. And so the smoke keeps on going, but we're actually going to use, and yes, I know, before we even get that far, yes, I know we have different settings for smoke and different settings for fire, and I know I can set, flow type to fire and smoke, but this type of fire is more for photorealism. It's not for the stylized look we're going to. So we're actually going to use the flow type. We're going to use smoke to create the stylized fire. So that's why I haven't changed this over to fire and smoke, in case you guys were wondering. So what we need to do is we need to not have this fire go up so high, because remember, we're using a smoke simulator to create fire. I feel like I'm confusing everybody. Anyway, real easy way to fix that. As you can see, everything's grayed out, and that's because we baked the dynamics. So if we free all bakes down there in the bottom right, now what we can do is we can click right here, dissolve. And if we set that dissolve to say, actually 4, something like that, now we can bake all the dynamics again and check out the difference we'll get. Okay, so this time I'll only let it go to about 30%, just for example. See, now you can see with this dissolve, it's really, really short, and it kind of just fades away much quicker. And that's exactly what we want for the stylized fire. However, this might be a little too short. So let me free the bakes, and let's put it at 6 and see what that does. Okay, so let's see. With it fading at 6, see, we've got this cooler. It fades off. We probably might even stick with 5, but for now we'll leave it at 6 because that looks pretty cool. We've got this wispy looking smoke coming off, and it's looking pretty cool. So we're going to call that a done simulation. All right, so now we can get into the node editor. Just split the screen here, and let's change this over to cycles render. And remember, if we render right now, all we're seeing is the cube. And actually, let me go into our world settings, and I'm going to turn the strength of the background off because we want a black background here. So we're not seeing anything, and that is because we have not given it any materials. Now for the smoke and the fire and all of that, you want to apply your materials to the domain, not the flow object. So ignore the text for now. We'll click on our domain, go to materials, add new material. And now if we go into rendered view, you still won't see anything because all we've got is this simple diffuse material on here. And as a matter of fact, we're going to just delete that diffuse material right now. And what we can do is hit Shift A, add in a shader, and we're going to add an emission shader. And then if we take that emission shader and we connect it to surface, you're going to see an emitting cube. So what we need to do is connect that emission to volume, and we've got, well, a volumetric emitting, light emitting cube, which is still not what we want. So we need to fix that, but we need to tell Blender that no, the light needs to be coming from the flow object. Take the density value of the smoke and emit the light based on that density, if that makes any kind of sense. Bottom line is, this is what you need to do. Shift A, input, attribute, and then in the attribute field for the name, type density. Oops. Density. And that's basically the smoke simulations. It's the density of the smoke, how dense the smoke is. It's that simulation. So if we drop that into color, voila. Now we've got some cool kind of smoke going on. However, it's not quite bright enough. So what we can do is take emission and bump it up, say about 5. And now we've got something going on here. Okay, so here we go. Let's go ahead and let's start colorizing these flames. So we'll hit Shift A, color, or actually converter, color ramp, and we're going to use the color ramp to determine the colors of our flame. Now you'll see as I move the black value, that shows how far out the fire goes. So as it fades off from white hot around the letters to, as the fire gets further away, it cools and it eventually disappears. And that's what the black is showing us. The white is showing us the hot side. So we pull that over, you see we're blowing out the heat side. So we'll leave the black and the white there, and we'll click this plus arrow to create a new one. And we'll give it a real dark red, because as fire begins to fade off, it becomes this dark red. So we can move this over, add another one, and we'll move it over here. And we'll give this one a much brighter yellow, like an orangish color, like so. And we can even add one more, bring it way over, and we'll make this our bright yellow. bright yellow. And I think if you wanted to, you could probably get even hotter with the fire by adding a bluish. So remember, the blue is a hotter color, so we can even add a little blue in, which you can barely start to see it right there. So right against the text is where you'll get that blue flame, and then it fades into this yellowish, and then it will get, let's move the red over some, move the orange. You can kind of make the orange a little oranger, and you can play with the colors to get something you like. Basically, that's what we're looking for. So now you see we got really not a lot of steps, and we've got this cool fire going. Let me kick the sampling up just so we get a little cleaner in here. All right, so that's actually looking really, really good. What we can do is save the guy, and now we'll really bump this up. We'll actually take 4 for the smoke high resolution, and we're really just going to bump this resolution up. Let's say 120, and I'm going to save again because this could crash, and bake all dynamics, and I'll see you guys in like 3 hours when this is done. Okay, so we've rebaked it. Let's see what that looks like. You see, now we've even got more of this wispy looking effect. Looks pretty cool, man. Looks pretty cool indeed. So there we go. That's really basic, but what we can do is we can render it out. Let me just set this up real quick. Set the render preview to 25. It doesn't really need to be 50. That was a little more than we needed. And full global illumination. And let's go ahead and render out a frame. All right, so we've got it rendered out. What we can do, it's a little grainy, but that's because we're only using 25 samples. We'll kick the samples up for the final render, but what we can do here is we can jump into the compositor by clicking this little guy on our node editor. Click that little guy there, click use nodes, and I usually click backdrop. And what we can do is we can add some glow to really make those flames pop. So Shift A, let's go filter. We'll add a glare, and we'll change it from streaks to fog glow. Bring the threshold to 0, and now you'll see right off the bat, now it's looking like a white hot burning fire. So kick that up to 9 and set that to high, and that'll slow down our positing. But now you're getting something good. Let's actually mute that so you can see before. This is straight out of the render, and add the composite. Let it load. And now we've got some glowing going on. And if you wanted to, you could stop there, and that's good, but you could try, see, I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. A blur, feed that same image in. And what you could do is do fast Gaussian, blur the hell out of it. 256 and 256, just to give it a little extra glow. And then we can add in an alpha over. And if we add our original image back in, that backwards. No, I'm sorry. You know what? It's not an alpha over. It is a mix node. Set it to add. Now if we connect these two in, you should start to see that glow. Yeah. And then we can bring the factor down because we don't want it glowing nearly that much. All right. Okay. So now if we connect in our glare fog glow with our blurred glow there, give it a second, and now you see we've got this faint glow around the text. The text itself has this glare to it, and now we've got text on fire. So let's go ahead and render that out, and you'll see what it looks like in motion. And we'll be back for that. Okay, so one other thing is you may want to adjust when the fire sparks on, and that can be done really easy. Back in, here in the settings here. So what we can do, say you don't want the fire to start from frame 1. Easily to do. You say you want to start at frame 30. All you have to do is go into your settings, your simulation settings. Excuse me. I usually bring water in here when I do these tutorials, and I didn't bring any with me. But that's okay. We're almost done. Say you don't want the fire to start from frame 1. You've got some other animation going on, and then the text comes in and then it explodes into flames. Real easy to do. All you have to do is under your domain, go into your domain settings, go all the way down to smoke cache, and under start frame, you'll change that, let's say 30 in our case. So now the simulation won't start until frame 30. So let's bake the dynamics and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I only let it go till frame 30. But as you can see now, if you look at this progress bar down here, there's nothing going on till we hit frame 30 and then boom. Okay, so back into Blender, we've got this fire setup, but let's say that you just want to render, you just want to see the fire. You don't actually want to see the text. You just want the you know what, am I making sense? You want the fire to, you want the text to be created in fire. Real easy to turn that off. You've got a couple of options to you. You can, I think, actually maybe not. I think you can go and on the emitter itself add a transparent shader, but I don't think that's going to work too well. It works okay. Okay, so hey, that was easier than I thought. So there you go. Now you have a couple of different looks for your fire. You can render it as if it's burning an actual object. You can render it as if the fire is creating the letter, as we've done here, and both add a really cool effect. Okay, so everything's looking pretty cool, but what we want to do is we need to add just a little bit more. As you can see, the flames were just, as you saw, the flames were just kind of just going straight up. And it looks cool and all, but what if we added just a little bit, like say the wind's blowing and we've got a light breeze is kind of blowing things around. What we can do is we can Shift A and add in a force field right down here, and we'll add in a turbulent force, just to add in a little turbulence to our simulation. And what I'm actually going to do while we do this is I'm going to go into our physics. I'm going to free the bakes. And we're going to turn the divisions back down to 32. Turn the resolution here down to 1. And then if we take our turbulence, we turn our strength up to say, not 1,000, let's go 100. Turn our flow up to about 2. Give it some noise. And then bake that. You'll see what the difference is. Okay, so now when the smoke comes out, you'll see it's got this turbulence to it, which is kind of cool, and it'll be based dependent on where you put this turbulent field. So say you want the smoke blowing off to the side, like that. Let's take it, let's put it right about here. Bake it again. So now you're getting this kind of real turbulent effect to it, which adds something really cool to it. Of course, remember we turned the resolution down, so it's not all that impressive. So let's turn that back up to 120 and set the smoke to 4 and bake that. Okay, so instead of just sitting here waiting for the simulation to complete and showing you that in Blender, I just went ahead and rendered it out so that I could show you the two side by side. So you could see here on the screen on your left, you're seeing with no turbulent force field, and then you're seeing on the right, adding the turbulence force field. And you can see the difference in the effect here. It's kind of got a really cool added effect. And that is pretty much it for this tutorial, guys. I can't think of anything else to tell you guys except for thank you for your patience on waiting for this tutorial to get out. I know it's a little aggravating. Once again, I had a son, and my wife was recently laid off from work, which is a major bummer, but it gives me the options to pick up some freelance work and do more things. And it's time, life happens. The times change, and you kind of got to roll with the punches. So I'm out here rolling with the punches. Thank you guys for rolling with me. and hope you learned something. Hope you had some fun, and get out there and set some things on fire in Blender. Set some things on fire in Blender. You know, leave your parents' back porch alone. Don't be setting their house on fire. Okay, bad jokes aside, that's it for me, guys. I am out. Set some text on fire. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments down below. I do my best to answer any questions I get. Yeah, that's it for me, guys. We'll be back pretty soon. I'm actually, as soon as I finish recording this one, I'm going to record our pixel screen tutorial that the demo has been out for way too long, even longer than this one. So I'm going to get that one recorded right now, and you'll see that one here pretty soon. So thank you guys for watching. You've been watching Firechild Video. My name is Chad. Have a good one, guys.